guys, I'm Sarah. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a recent reads video, and I have a lot of books here, so we're just gonna start talking about them. Yeah, I have a lot. I did a lot of rereading. I buddy read some more books with my family. I just have a whole bunch here. Yeah, there's quite a few, so hopefully this video won't be too long. And as always, if you're curious about more content details or even just details about each of the books that I may have forgotten to mention in this video, because some of these books I read a while ago, as always, the links to my reviews on Goodreads will be in the description down below in case you're curious about any of that. So without further ado, we're gonna just go down the list. We're just gonna start from roughly the order that I read them in, and the very first book we have here is, stop it, is Twilight by Stephenie Meyer. Yeah, this was one of the books I wanted to try to read this year, and obviously, I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody knows what this book is about, even if you've never read it or seen the movie or anything, you probably pretty much know. Basic concept, it's about Bella Swan. She moves into this new town in Washington State, and she's going to high school, and she meets Edward Cullen, who is a vampire, and it's their romance. And that's pretty much the entire story. I gave this book 2 stars. I wanted to give it a chance. I've heard for years about Twilight and like how terrible it is, or about its rabid fans and all these crazy things about Twilight. I've seen enough videos on YouTube saying what is wrong with Twilight than anything, because I don't know why, but roast reviews of Twilight, like, it's generally the movies, but the books are usually in there too. But for some bizarre reason, watching those videos is like strangely therapeutic. Do not ask why. I don't even fully know why, but whatever. So I was curious. I wanted to judge it for myself. I'm not going to be continuing the rest of the series. Let's just put that out there. I just wanted to read the first book and judge it for myself, and it wasn't bad. Yeah, some of the writing could be a little cringy, I'm sure, but it's just a high school romance. I mean, what do you expect? Yeah, the beginning was actually pretty engaging. I actually thought Bella was a much snarkier character and a much more fleshed out character than a lot of people give her credit for. Yeah, I actually enjoyed her. Edward actually had a few likable qualities. He does have a problem with mental and emotional abuse, manipulation, not abuse, but manipulation. I'll say that. I mean, he gaslights a ton. So, boyfriend material, no. Yeah. But he actually had more personality than I thought he would, at least based on, like, clips of the movie I've seen over the years and stuff like that. He had more personality than I thought he would. And, yeah, it was fine. The middle did drag a ton. Cause it was like fine for the first like third, and then the middle like really dragged. Mainly because it was just Bella going back and forth on how she found him attractive, and then just random things happening. And yeah, and then it got interesting I would say the last third of the book, probably around the climax. That was a fairly interesting spot. And then yeah, there's really not much to say. I will say, yeah, definitely don't model your romantic relationships after this couple, because they are problematic in many ways. Mainly Edward, but also Bella too, because she kind of just rolls with it and like finds things romantic and stuff. Like him watching her sleep, she wasn't like creeped out at all. Be creeped out by that. That is weird. Yeah, but yeah, there's issues with it. And I couldn't get past the emotional manipulation stuff, mainly because yeah, I've had that done to me in my life, so I'm very sensitive to that, so I couldn't really pass that. So it was originally going to be 3 stars, but there was a little bit too much of that, and Bella kept going on and on about how godlike Edward looked. Just don't get me into that, because I wanted to throw her out a window when she started doing that. But yeah, so I gave it 2 stars. It's fine. It's fairly harmless, but yeah, I really don't see the obsession over it. Like, there was like the Twilight obsession when it first came out, and I remembered hearing about it, and I never got it. Even reading the book, I don't really quite get it. So there you have it. That's my thoughts on Twilight. I will not be continuing the rest of the series. I might at some point try Midnight Sun, which is basically Twilight from Edward's perspective, or Life and Death, which is like a gender flip of Twilight, but that's as far as I'm going with this series. I am not doing the rest of it because love triangle and further problematic elements in the relationship, so no, I'm not going any further, but it was a fun time, and I did enjoy the fact of just seeing my own opinion on this book. Okay, so, yeah, I guess we could talk about that series next. The next one I have, it's technically the series I'm going to be talking about because I buddy read these with my family. These are a reread for me, and that is the second Age of Retha series by Sohma. I'm not fully sure how to say the author's last name. This is a pen name of Shea, and this is the first book in the series, which is The Luckless. Let me find a picture for the other two. The second one is The Desperate Quest, and the third one is The Revived. And these are basically fantasy RPG lit books. Basically, it's a fantasy video game that these characters are in. And the basic premise of the series, in the very first book, The Luckless, we meet Kit. She is a regular gamer, and she goes to her local arcade game, and then they have like full submersion things where they like put you under, so to speak. And it's really kind of weird. I would never have that done to me, but anyways, it's like whatever, things like that. It's some kind of sci-fi type technology that we don't have currently today. Anyways, she gets in one of those things, and through a joke of her cousins, she ends up getting stuck in this joke character, which is an elf dancer. And yeah, unfortunately, he meant for it as a joke where she could, get off right away and then just, immediately yell at him and stuff like that, and it'd be funny. Unfortunately, his prank was put at a wrong time because there's a power surge that goes out through several arcade games or whatever the arcade game she is on, and she gets transferred to a backup server. The problem is it has corrupted files, so now she and everybody else in the game at the time are trapped. Basically, all these people are now trapped inside this fantasy game, which is called Retha, and yeah, they're stuck there. And she is in this joke character, which has all this bad luck attached to it, and the only way for them to auto-log themselves off and get around the backup server problem is for them to go and defeat this necromancer last boss in a game called Malignus. Problem is, nobody has ever defeated him. And yeah, that is Kit's goal, is to get as many players as she can to help her defeat Malignus and get out of the game. Yeah. First of all, I am not a gamer, so, this series probably, just based on the premise, probably wouldn't appeal to me. But I wanted to try it. I'd heard good things on Goodreads about it. This was because this series got on my 2022 favorites books list, which I'll link that video down below in case you haven't seen it. Mainly because I read the last two books in 2022. Technically, I started this series back in 2021. So, when I first started it, I had read certain reviews on Goodreads about it, and I liked, at the time, I had only read Shea's King Arthur and Her Knights series, but I wanted to try something else, and I knew this was also written by her, just under a pen name, so I decided to pick it up and try it, and I loved it. Like I said, I am not a gamer, so the video game terminology sometimes goes over my head. Most of the time I can figure out what they're talking about. Most of the time I can figure out what they're saying and stuff, or what it basically means, but yeah, technical terms as a whole, no. I get very, very lost sometimes, but I kind of just equate it to being like a type of magic system in a fantasy that I don't necessarily understand all of it, but I understand the basic concept, so I'm good with it. Yeah, I really enjoyed this series. Mainly it's the characters that win you over, Kit and her misfit band, and yeah, this is an amazing series. I love all the characters. I got my family to read it. They really enjoyed it too. All three of the books are 5 stars for me. It is not a complete series. There are going to be 5 books total. The 4th book, according to the author, is coming out, I believe, late fall and or winter of this year. So the 4th book should be coming out this year. It is not currently out. But you can read the first 3 books and not be left on any cliffhangers. They're just kind of in the situation of being trapped in the video game, has not been resolved. Yeah, and there's a really cute slow burn romance. I mean, I think it's cute, but yeah, I really enjoy these characters. They're just top-notch characters. There are a lot, especially when you get to book 3, there are a lot of different characters to keep up with, but most of the ones who are majorly involved with things, I can keep up with pretty well, and yeah, I just really enjoy this. Yeah, it has a ton of Lord of the Rings references and like nods to it, so if you're a fan of those books and movies, yeah, that is very cool to see, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed it, and I even said in my 2022 favorites books video, favorite books video, whatever, I can't talk. I did say I wanted to reread this series this year. Ironically, I ended up doing that. That was more of a joke, so that's funny. Okay. So the next book I have here is Freedom by Angela Dorsey. This is a middle grade ghost story. Let's just put it that way. Yeah, basically this one is about this girl, Janny. She moves into a new town. She brings her horse Kita with her, and they have a stable on the property that they've bought, and she and her new friend Penny, they discover that the barn's haunted with a ghost horse named Freedom, and their goal is to try to help her get out of the barn and release her from her prison. That is basically an entire goal. I mean, it's not a very big book, so I can't say a ton about it, but as far as ghost stories go, this is not very creepy at all. There's no weird things like with Ouija boards or anything like that. There's nothing weird like that. Obviously, they're only dealing with a ghost horse. The horse can't talk, so they're just dealing with her as she's a normal horse. She just happens to be a spirit. So, yeah, like there are a couple scenes in here, instances where it felt a little bit creepy, but this author definitely knows how to balance her supernatural with her normal without it being too much for her audience. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. And the biggest thing I took from this, because this is a book I did read when I was younger, I didn't read it very often. Technically, I read the second book in this series more than the first one. But the thing that really hit me this time, though, was just how the author talked about love and hatred and just the opposites of it, and like how powerful both those emotions are. I really enjoyed her kind of commentary on it, just her mentioning of it and stuff in this story, because sometimes I think things like that where like love is stronger than hate is really strong and can like keep you tethered and everything. I think sometimes in some stories we know that's true, but I think a lot of the times the what am I looking for? The execution of it is like just the same, so we tend to just gloss over it. But I really like how she used a ghost story to point out those themes, but in a way that it hits you a little differently just because of the medium she chose, or at least the way she chose to tell it as a ghost story. And I thought that was very interesting. I have heard that a lot of people in like horror genres and stuff tend to do things like that. They take these things that we know and like they use the horror elements to amplify it. Not that I would watch or read horror, but a ghost story is kind of on the line between horror and supernatural anyways. So yeah, I did really like the fact that how she used it, and you could see it from just a different perspective, and how that affected my view, at least, of the that truth of that love is stronger than hate and stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed that about it. I will hopefully be able to, at some point when my mood switches back, because I am discovering I am a major mood reader right now. Hopefully I will be able to read the second and the third books in this trilogy. I've never read the third one, but I have read the second one a lot. So yeah, but I really enjoyed reading this one. Okay, yep, gotta find another picture because I have books everywhere, all over the place. This is why I generally try to do them more often, but I let this get away from me. Anyways, the next one I read was The Healer of the Brigade by Michaela Bush. This is the second book in the Legends of Lanneria series. The very first book is The Lady of Lanneria. Yeah, and I got an art copy of this from the author. in exchange for an honest opinion, and I really like this book. It is a Christian non-magical fantasy, and we follow Aruli, I believe is how you say the main character's name. I am not 100% sure. If I pronounced that wrong, I'm very sorry. But we follow her. She is living in this country that is currently a war, or the war thing is a little obscure to me. But anyways, I'll get into that anyways. But there's a war, and she's kind of caught in the middle of it because she's just living in the country where this war is starting between this country's soldiers and Lanneria. I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, she's a cripple, and she's been scorned her whole life, called a curse, a blight that, like, God had cursed her family, or the gods. I think it was the gods. Never mind. This has been a little bit since I read the book, so if I get any information wrong, I apologize. But anyways, she's a cripple, and people call her a curse. She also has the gift of healing by laying on of hands from God, and that also gets her a bad label as, like, she practices dark arts and witches, and she is a witch and stuff. But she isn't. So she keeps to herself in isolation. She hides in the woods with her horse Stumps, and until, of course, an injured soldier is brought to her door by his friend, and this injured soldier is from Lanneria. His name is Horace, and he has been set on this mission, aside from the war, to find these dark witches that escaped Lanneria and have basically plotted, like, horrible things towards Lanneria's princess and her husband, who are Horace's best friends. He has gone there to try to find them and bring them back. Unfortunately, things don't really go the way he wants when he gets injured and ends up in the care of Aruli. And then things spiral from there. They have to learn to work together, and just things ensue. I really, really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 stars. Mainly, I think my rating was mostly compounded by the fact that there was something odd about the e-art copy I got. Like, the text was huge. I couldn't get it to shrink or be ridiculous. There were tons of ridiculous things with that e-art copy, which is why I'm very fuzzy with details about the war and a few other more poignant details and things that happened. I kind of more glossed over more than I wanted to, mainly because of the format of the e-art copy I got. Now, this has nothing to do with the book. It's just why I'm fuzzy in certain places like that, because, yeah, that copy, it did something weird, and then I couldn't focus on it, because then all my brain could focus on was, this is weird, this is weird. So, yeah, I missed some details, which, when I get my paperback copy that I ordered, I will reread it, hopefully, and get more details the next time around. But, yeah, I really like the characters. This book kind of has Beauty and the Beast vibes. It's not a strict retelling, but it does have those vibes with Aruli being injured as a cripple and, being beastly in her personality, and more having to be pulled out by that with Horace's kindness and his friends Robbie's just treatment of her. And I really enjoyed their arcs. I really enjoyed seeing her go from really, really gruff to just really embracing what God had called her to do. I also liked that the author put in as kind of a magic system, but not really, as the whole laying on of hands and healing people, God using his power through humans to heal people. And I really liked how she put that in there, because it's true. People can do that. I mean, if God has given you the gift to do it, you can do it. It happens in the Bible all the time, so why not? And even in other countries, I've heard of it happening and stuff. Less so here, but that's mainly because I think we've forgotten about it. But anyways, I really liked how she added that in. She also added in a couple characters who were gifted with foreknowledge from God, so to, know bits of the future and stuff. I really enjoyed her combining her aspects, those aspects that are very real, into this story, and yeah, really enjoyed that. I also liked, there's kind of a prophecy thing that's added in this book, and I really liked the way she did it, where it's kind of like ripped up and there's scattered pieces everywhere, and we don't really know the whole thing. So I think that's very, very clever way to use the prophecy thing. The prophecy trope, that is probably a trope, but yeah. And yeah, really enjoyed this. Yeah, and I'm very much looking forward to eventually rereading it and hopefully catching all the bits I missed. But yeah, really enjoyed it. We also got to see characters from The Lady of Lanneria again, which I really liked because I adore those characters. And for further clarification, Horace is in the very first book, The Lady of Lanneria. He's the main hero's best friend. So yeah, definitely, yeah, I was really happy to see more of him, and yeah, really enjoyed this book. Unfortunately, but just my e-art copy was weird, so I don't think I fully enjoyed it as much as I wanted to. But yeah, really enjoy it. Really highly recommend that series, especially if you like Christian fantasy but without the magical element. It's a really good series. Very much highly recommend. Okay, the next book I read was part of my very much bizarre rereading binge that I just suddenly launched into. Do not ask why I had it, because I don't fully know. And one of those books is Little Prince, The Story of a Shetland Pony. This is by Annie Woodkind. Basically, this is a story about a Shetland pony named Finn. He's living the lap of luxury in his, like, city stable and with his posh owner and stuff, and basically one day he gets sold and he ends up at this petting zoo farm, basically, with all these like ragtag and animals, and yeah, and he basically just has to find his new place in the world. There's not much else to say. The book's not very big. I enjoyed this a lot when I was younger, and yeah, I still enjoyed it. I do appreciate how all the animals, because it is a you know, story told from the point of animals, so the animals like talk to each other and stuff. I did appreciate how all the animals have their own distinctive voices, so you always knew who was talking. At one time, they just had distinctive ways that they talked and stuff, so I really liked how the author characterized all of them. Other than that, though, I did think the beginning dragged a tiny bit. There were a lot of descriptive things of like the surroundings and stuff. I think it went on a little too long, but yeah, it wasn't bad. Yeah. And Finn learns some important lessons and has a good character arc, and yeah, it's enjoyable. I gave it 3 stars. I will not personally be keeping the book, mainly because I try to keep books that I really enjoy, and this one was just okay, so I'll be passing this on to someone else who will like it more. But yeah, if you have kids who like animal stories, I would definitely recommend this one. It's a really good one. Okay, the next one I read was in that same rereading binge, and that is Endurance Ride by Bonnie Bryant. This is a Saddle Club book. It's book 69. Yeah, basically the 3 girls in the Saddle Club, they go on an endurance ride that's being hosted near their stable, and things happen, and that's pretty much the story. This is one of the very few fiction books that talks about endurance riding, which, if you don't know what endurance riding is, it's basically, think of it as like extreme trail running, you know, like for humans, on like trails in the woods and stuff like that. Think of it like that, except you're doing it on a horse. So yeah, it's basically extreme trail riding, trail running on horses. So yeah, and it's a timed competition and things like that, and it's mostly you do it to beat your own time and condition your horse and stuff like that. So yeah, and this is one of the very few fiction books that talks about this subject, so I always like it for that reason. I haven't read too many of the Saddle Club books. I mean, I read a lot of them, the beginning ones when I was younger, but I never really stuck with the series though, because I've often found the characters irritating. Thankfully they're not irritating in this book, but yeah, it was just a good book. It was pretty good. I did always like the climax though, being mainly because it definitely teaches you how to react in a serious situation. I can't really say what happens due to spoilers, but yeah, just something happens and the way the girls react and they try to help and stuff like that is very realistic. So yeah, it could definitely teach kids how to react in a terrifying situation like that. So yeah, still liked it. I gave it 3 stars. I will not be keeping the book personally, but yeah, I did enjoy it. Okay, and wake up. And let's see, yep. The next book I read, part of that rereading binge, which, it doesn't really end in a bit, so never mind, is Samurai's Ride. The Story of an Arabian Filly, also by Annie Woodkind. This is basically about Samurai, or Sammy as she's known, and she's an Arabian, and she lives on a dude ranch with her owner Jasper, and it's their adventures. that's pretty much it. Yeah, I used to really like this when I was younger. I really did not this time. I actually found it kind of boring. Sammy often would just go on and on about how Arabians could do this or that or were this and that without actually showing it by her actions. Yeah, I gave this 2 stars. Yeah, there's really not too much to say. Also, this book, it's a middle grade. Technically even younger than middle grade, I would say, for something. And it has, like, the D word in it. That threw me off when I saw that again. I was like, oh, wait a minute. I did not remember this book having that. And it also has, like, I think, like a good lord in it, like as a swear word. And it was like, okay, why is this in a kid's book? So yeah, that threw me off. Those definitely threw me off. You know, I'm used to seeing things like that in, like, young adult or something, especially, like, secular, fiction. But most middle grade, sticks to, like, gosh and gee and stuff, not the D word. So that was, shocking. So that was partially why I lowered it. I also just lowered it because I was bored. And, yeah, I will not be keeping this book. So that's it. I have nothing else to say. Okay. All right, the next book I have to talk about, unfortunately I have a lot to say, or just I have stuff to say about it, and it's not good. So, yeah. And that is Beauty and the Beast by K.M. Shea. This is the first book in her timeless fairy tale series, and yeah. The book is basically about Elle. She ends up stuck in Prince Severin's chateau, or castle, basically, by accident. He's our Beast character, and she ends up there. How? She fell through his roof and broke her leg. It's a very interesting way to start your book. I'll give her that. Yeah, literally, Elle falls through his roof and breaks her leg, and, like, literally she can't leave. He doesn't want her there, she doesn't want to be there, but they're, like, stuck being together, and it's their story of them getting to know each other better. There's not much else to say, in my opinion, about the book. It started off, at least the very first sentence with her literally falling through the roof on his head, is an interesting and very good way to start your book. However, this may give you an indication of how I felt about this book. I gave this book 2 stars. I was gonna give it 3. There's a reason I did not. I want to also preface this by saying I have loved, or at least liked, most of K.M. Shea's books that I've read so far. So far, this is the only one I have very much disliked. And this one, I disliked it so much, it put me in a reading slump. So, yeah. Basically, yeah, there isn't much of a plot beyond the idea that Severin and Elle have to fall in love and break the curse and all that, typical Beauty and the Beast fare. Beyond that, there really isn't much of a plot. Mainly it's things happen, like random events happen towards the characters, and they, like, never come up again or never have any correlating opinion to what goes on with the rest of the story again. It's just, like, random events happen to make the characters closer together. I'm just fine with that. It took me, I buddy read this with my mom. Both of us had the same opinion on this book. It took a lot to get into it. Like, it took us the first 4 or 5 or 6 chapters for us to even be slightly interested in it. Yeah, I think I was interested a tiny bit sooner than she was, but even then, it was just kind of going on. It was just these random things happening. It was just like, okay, this is fine. So I was leaning towards a 3-star by that, until I reached the last 3 chapters. The last 3 chapters are terrible. I'll just put it that way. Basically, I got whiplash at least 4 or 5 times because of things just happened. It's like, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and then suddenly people were angry at each other, and they wouldn't listen to each other, even though technically she broke the curse. I mean, obviously, it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. What kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling would not have that aspect? And then, like, that happened, and then people wouldn't believe each other, and then they were mad at each other, but then the next chapter, they were, like, best friends again, and then it just ended, like, abruptly. And it was like, whoa. And I got total whiplash from it, and I was so irritated by the way that ended that I gave it 2 stars. I do not recommend this book. It boggles me that this book has a average rating of like 4 point something on Goodreads. I honestly don't know why. I think it's terribly structured. But I also do not like Beauty and the Beast retellings most of the time. There's only about 3 that I like, that I've read so far, and I've read a lot. So take that into consideration. I don't normally like Beauty and the Beast retellings. This one definitely ends on my list of I don't like at all. I believe this was also one of the author's very first books. A lot of the things she was doing were very newbie mistakes of like not really having a plot and the characters just kind of doing things. The characters also didn't have a ton of agency or characteristics. I mean, they did. They did up until like the end, and then they were like acting all weird. So yeah, definitely not my favorite book by this author. But I have since further continued with the Timeless Fairy Tale series. You'll see that I have another book in that series to talk about, and it definitely gets better in my opinion. So if you just, and since these are all basically just standalone books, you could pretty much, if you don't like Beauty and the Beast retellings, and you just don't want to risk potentially not like it, you can just potentially skip this book. But I would say also look up reviews of people who did like it in case you do like retellings of this fairy tale and stuff, because I am coming from a perspective of someone who does not normally. So yeah, take that into consideration if you consider wanting to read this book. Maybe do a little more research and see if your opinion might be more inclined to like the book than me. So yeah, definitely not giving up on this author's works. Obviously, I love her Magic Ford series. Retha, obviously, I just talked about Retha. She wrote that one. Yeah, I love others of her books. This one just did not hit for me, unfortunately. Okay, yeah. And the next book was another of my rereads. That is Dark Horse by Sharon Simon. This is book 9 in the Mustang Mountain series. Yeah, basically in this one, this is another book about endurance, and in this one, Becky and Sanderson is riding her mother's horse, Wendy, in their first endurance race. She's doing it for her mom because she's injured herself, and yeah, they're basically riding their first endurance race, and she, basically her mom and her best friend Rob, basically they're doing it, her mom and Rob are crewing for her, she's riding Wendy, and they kind of get accidentally tangled up in this other girl, Tara, who is the same age as Becky, not Wendy. Wendy's the horse. Okay, that's funny. Never mind. Tara is the same age as Becky, so they're kind of get sucked in together, and they get to riding the trail together, even though Becky doesn't like her, and things are happening outside of the ride. Like, there's like an extra competition between Tara and this other group of endurance riders, and things go from just mildly weird to deadly very, very fast. Yeah, again, another small book. This one also talks about endurance riding a lot. It definitely goes into more detail than the Saddle Club book does. So yeah, this one, definitely if you want to learn a lot more about endurance riding, this book is way more detailed on that and felt in that regards deeper in that way. I've always really, really liked this. Thankfully, I still do. This was a favorite I read a lot when I was younger. I gave this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed Becky's growth in this one. There is kind of a jealousy from Becky towards Tara over Rob, because Becky likes Rob and she thinks he likes Tara. So there's a little bit of that going on in there, but I've read so much YA at this point that it didn't really bother me as much. It bothered me a lot when I was younger, but I found it actually well written upon this reread, and it's like, okay, this isn't as irritating as I thought it was. Again, I've read so much YA at this point, you know, a lot of that stuff is in there. So yeah, I still super enjoyed this though. Yeah, a lot more than I thought I would on this reread. I was hoping I would still like this book, and I'm just really glad I did. And I'm now curious to read the rest of the series because I never had the chance. Obviously, this is book 9. So I would be curious to read the rest of the series and see what I think about it, since I never really got the chance when I was younger. So yeah, really enjoyed rereading that one. Okay, the next one I have is another book I don't currently have. Okay. And that is a manga that just recently released, and that is Gap Papa, Daddy at Home and at Work. This is basically just a sweet little contemporary manga of these different vignettes of this father and husband just basically doing these cute random things with his wife and his daughter. That's basically the whole thing. There's no plot to it. It's just these cute little things that happen. This is the manga that got me out of the reading slump that Beauty and the Beast put me in. Yeah, I gave it 5 stars just because it was really cute, really wholesome. It's also a colored manga, which I didn't know that until I got it, and I was like, oh, it's colored, because most manga is black and white on the inside. So that was a nice surprise that I didn't know about, and yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was really cute. There's really not much to say about it. It did get me out of my reading slump because it was just so wholesome and cute and made me smile, made me feel happy, and yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about that one. I will be continuing with the volumes as long as my library keeps getting them, because I just think it's something cute, and it would be a good thing to read on occasion if I just want something, you know, light, fluffy. Okay. And the next one, I got things all over the place. I apologize if this is taking longer than normal. The next one I read is also another short book. This is The Princess and the Pea by K.M. Shea. This is a free novella you can get when you sign up for the author's newsletter. It kind of is a prequel to the Timeless Fairy Tale series. It is a retelling of The Princess and the Pea, obviously. And in this one, we follow Liz. Liz, I believe is how you say her name. It's Lis is her nickname, so I think that's how you say it. She and her companion Vora, the two of them are like warrior women on hire. They're basically mercenaries on hire, but they do it so honorably. And they have been hired to guard this jewel, this magical jewel, which is called the Pea of Primordial. I think that's its name. It's a ridiculous name. They even specify that. And basically they have been hired on to guard it because it's going to be, because lots of people are trying to steal it because it's magical. And yeah, and Liz gets involved with the prince there, and it's pretty much just her and Vora guarding this jewel and her interactions with the prince and what happens through that. It's very short. It's only like 8 chapters. Obviously, it's a novella. It's very short. I really enjoyed the characters. I liked how Liz and Vora were warrior women, but they weren't in an annoying way. They both had their strengths, but they would both also know when to have help from outside help, because like the prince helps them on occasion, and yeah, they accept that help and are still seen as strong, capable women through that. There is also a hilarious chase scene with a carriage in this book, and literally I read this book again for that alone because that was hilarious. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. This kind of gave me faith to continue with the Timeless Fairy Tale series, because it was really good. I gave it 4 stars, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed that one. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to see what I have left here to talk about. You know what? I'm just going to talk about these since they're sitting here, and then I'll get to some of the other ones. This one's going to be very short. As Cleopatra the 7th, Daughter of the Nile. This is part of the Royal Diaries series, another one of my reread to see if I want to keep books. And, and this is by Christiana Gregory. And I DNF'd this book. Not that it was bad, I was bored. It's written in like diary format. It's like a spin-off of the Dear America books, which I was never overly fond of when I was young, but I did like this one, and I don't know, I started reading it, and then I just kept thinking I'm bored, so I DNF'd it. It's not badly written. I did used to enjoy it, like I said, and yeah, I was just bored, so I quit. So yeah, not a bad book. I just didn't care. So, yeah, DNF that one. I will not be keeping it, obviously. And the next one that I reread, actually, this is the last of my rereads, and that is My Life with Penny by Marianne Majelva, I believe is how you say the author's name. She's Norwegian, I believe, so I hope I didn't butcher that. This is basically about Julia. She is basically... Actually, how would you describe this book? Basically, this is about Julia, our main character, remembering things that happened to her and her pony Penny, just throughout various stages in her life. And it also kind of involves how Julia has grown too big for Penny and will now have to sell her and get a new horse. So that's kind of what it is. It's basically almost like a fictional memoir of a sense. At least the very first half of it is. It also intersperses with Julia's vacation in Spain at a riding retreat. I promise it's not as scattered as I'm making it sound. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. This is a book I read a lot when I was younger. I always really just liked the way the story was told, and just how Julia's relationship with the people at her barn and her horse and all things like that. And I also liked how the author addressed growing too big for your pony and stuff, and just how hard that is. At least, yeah, that would be hard. I mean, I'm short, so I can technically still ride my pony if I want to. But yeah, most people aren't like me and they're taller. So yeah, I did really enjoy that discussion of that. And yeah, I still really enjoyed this book. Gave it 4 stars, and I will be keeping it. So yeah, that's kind of the last of my rereads for a while. So, okay, we're just going to talk about this book because I honestly don't have much to say about this one either. And that is The Dragon Knight's Beloved, Volume 4. I always get tongue-tied over that name. I think it's too many long words together or something. But yeah, this is a manga series. If you were around when I talked about Volume 3, I didn't like that one as much. I thought it was kind of boring. This one did kind of go up a little bit in the liking. I gave it 3 stars. It was a little more interesting. It's just very kind of slice of life, very chill. Even though there's more dire things happening by the end of it, it still has a very chill vibe to it. So the artwork is beautiful. My only problem with it is that the artwork, like 3 different guys now, look almost exactly alike in the art. It's very hard to discern between them, and one of them is the main character, so it makes it even, one of the main characters makes it even harder to discern between them. So I'm not a fan of that because I really have to stare at them to be like, who is this and who are they talking? Sometimes the translation of what they're talking about or who's talking doesn't really flow very well between panels either. So I'm still enjoying it for the most part, so I will still be continuing the series as long as my library gets volumes, but it's in no way my favorite series. So yeah, there's really not much more to say about that one either. So sorry, I'm just looking at my list over here to make sure I didn't miss anything because I have a lot of books here. Okay, so while we're on the topic of K.M. Shea's books, I'm just going to talk about this one as well, and that is The Wild Swans by K.M. Shea. This is book 2 in the Timeless Fairy Tale series. This is the old cover version, by the way. It has a new cover that's more similar to the Beauty and the Beast one I showed you, but since I still have the physical book, I just thought I'd hold it up. This is just the copy my library had. So, in this one, this is a retelling of The Wild Swans, or The 7 Swans, I think it's also called. I think it has 2 names. Anyways, this one, we follow Elise. She is the foster daughter of this kingdom's royal family, and yeah, she is basically their country's treasure, and she's just living her life, doing normal things, along with her foster brothers, and things get weird, though, when when the king remarries this woman, and she's weird. They're like all, because like the king's acting strange, and they're all just kind of like, what is going on here? And then of course she shows her true colors when she decides to curse them all. She decides to curse the siblings, and she turns all the brothers into swans. There's 7 of them, and except the only one the curse doesn't affect is Elise. And so they basically run away because obviously what else are they gonna do? I mean, her brothers are now swans. So they run away, and basically Elise gets told by this enchantress that the only way to break the curse off of her brothers is if she knits shirts, or like some kind of a shirt-like covering out of stinging nettles, and while she does it, she can't talk. She can't say a word, she can't say a grunt, she can't like groan, she can't scream, she can't do anything, she can't utter anything. Because if she utters any kind of sound like that while she's working on them, or just during the daytime hours or anything, the magic will no longer work, and she'll have to start over again. And yeah, if anyone's touched stinging nettles, that is a horrifying sounding job. but Elise agrees to do it, and it's just from there. She's trying to break the curse, and their new stepmother is like trying to destroy their kingdom, and things ensue from there. This book is, I would guess, one of Kamshia's least liked books, which is why I gave it 4 stars. Because I apparently love being unpopular and liking books that most people don't. Mainly, I think it's because there is a love triangle in this book. Shocking. I know. I gave 4 stars to a book with a love triangle in it. But the love triangle really isn't pointed out in here. Mainly the romance is pretty much way on the back burner. It's barely there at all. And also the unique thing about this book is you can, basically she wrote 2 different epilogues at the end of the book. You can technically choose which guy she ends up with, which is a very unique element. I think a lot of people on reviews criticized her for that. They said it was like an easy way out and stuff like that, which it could be seen as that. I also saw it as just very creative and very kind of just nice to the people who might have, liked her with somebody else, and, they got the option to have that happen. So, yeah, because originally the guy I picked for technically wouldn't fit for Elise. I think I was picking him more because he had qualities that I liked personally. But yeah, after some consideration, and because my mom and I both buddy read this one too, so after some consideration and talking it over with her, I realized the other guy would technically be better for Elise total. But yeah, really, that is the vaguest thing ever. Yeah, the love triangle's, is there, but it's not really the focus because she's trying to break the curse. And I liked Elise. She definitely had a good character arc of just becoming less perfect and just doing things for the love of her brothers and her family. And just, yeah, there is a lot going on. There's not really a lot going on here, but with the character growth, her brothers grow as people as well, when they're not swans, because, yeah, they can have like an hour at night where they're not swans. And so that does make it easier for her to actually be able to communicate once in a while and stuff like that. So I don't think that's in the original fairy tale, or at least they're allowed to be human a little bit, but she still can't talk. I forget. But yeah, I still really enjoyed this book. Like I said, I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it way more than Beauty and the Beast, and yeah, it's very well written, very well done. The character growth is really good, and I enjoyed it a lot. Okay, we're almost done here. I have 4 more books to talk about, something like that. Okay, so we're just going to talk about this series before I forget, and that is Blind Date with a Supervillain, and where's the second book? Here it is. Because I'm just going to talk about these together. And On the Run with a Supervillain. These are both by H.L. Burke. And they are the first 2 books in the Supervillain Romance Project series. Yeah, this author has definitely written a giant superhero, universe type series. She started it with the Supervillain Rehabilitation Project. I bought the first book of that series. You can see it in my recent book haul, which I'll link down below in case you've missed that. Yeah, I have that one. I have these as ebooks, so I was just feeling in the mood for something light and funny with some action in it, so I decided to try these. And yeah, basically with Blind Date with Supervillain, we follow Apparition, I believe is how you say her superhero handle. She and her father are basically supervillains, and they've moved to this college town to track down a young superhero named Sean Park, or his superhero name is Surge. And basically her dad's obsessed with catching him or doing something to him or something. She has no idea why. She just does what her dad says because he's a manipulative jerk and has been that way her whole life. So yeah, she just basically gets a job, tries to act like a normal human being, to, a normal human, not a superhero, to get close to Sean, and yeah, they end up having a thing for each other. So it's very basic. It's basically a romance story, but with the superhero element, so you have the action and stuff. I really enjoyed this book. I felt a lot for what Apparition was going through, and her feelings on the thing of just of how she wants to do normal things, but her dad won't let her, and then, like, she has freedom for the first time, but she doesn't quite know what to do with it, and he, like, micromanages everything she does, and he's just an awful human being, and I did not care one bit when he was gone at the end. Yeah. I really just liked her growth, and just how she realized, how she just reacted to Sean's kindness towards her, and how she kind of changed from just doing whatever her dad says to being like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to attack this person who is being nice to me and treating me like I'm a human being, like I matter. And Sean also goes through growth too of just, he's a young superhero. He's just trying to do, you know, trying to stay a low profile and stuff, but he just keeps getting himself into these situations where he just wants to help because he is a nice guy. And yeah, and his, you know, his dad's a superhero, so he's constantly like telling him, you really can't do this without like a superhero team or something, you know, you really shouldn't be doing these things. And he's just like, you know, I really don't try to get myself in these situations, but he's just a nice guy, so he helps anyways. They're really cute as a couple, and I just really enjoyed it as a whole. In On the Run with the Supervillain, we jump ahead, I think about a year after the last book. It's something like that. And basically the attention flips, because basically the very first book, Blind Date with Supervillain, we're mainly following Apparition, and her thoughts and stuff. Sean also had a point of view in that one, but it was less so. And in the second book, On the Run with the Supervillain, we flip. We're more in Sean's head at that point, and less of Apparition's, who, I'll just say she goes by a different name in the second book, but I'm just going to keep it as that name because I don't really want to spoil things. So, in that one, basically, he and Apparition are visiting his family for Christmas, and, you know, he's trying to figure out how to propose to her because they've been dating for a while now, but the problem is he ends up getting framed for the murder of one of his superhero teammates on his group, but he didn't do anything. So he gets framed for that, and so basically he and Apparition go on the run. She's trying to help him get his name cleared. He is just running because he has no idea what's going on. He doesn't know who's framing him, why they would be doing it, and yeah, things like that, but they're trying to figure it out, and that's basically the plot of the second book. The actual plot of he's being framed, they're on the run, doesn't actually happen until almost the last half of the book, which I thought was surprising because that is the main thing on the blurb in the back. But the very first half of the book is more showing Sean's relationships with his superhero team and his family and with Apparition herself. And I think the author did that because it is never in any way boring. I think the author did that to show just how much Sean is losing when he ends up having to go on the run, and it shows just how much he is going to lose if he can't ever get his name cleared. And shows definitely how much he cares for his family, how tight-knit they are, which I really like. I like seeing tight-knit families in books because, you know, most of the time they're not. But yeah, I just really enjoyed that, just seeing his devastation over this thing and just being like so desperate to clear his name, but he doesn't know how. It just really hit, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, the only tiny quibble I have with the second book is the fact that I thought the ending should have been a little longer, mainly just so Sean and Apparition could be together a little bit more. The book does end well. It's not an abrupt ending. I just wanted a little more time with the two of them at the end. So that is my only complaint about the book. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm very excited to continue with the series because the next two books are about Sean's sister Juliet, and you meet her in this book, and her books are going to be wild. She is a wild girl. So yeah, I'm very excited to continue with the series and this author's works. Yeah, really enjoy it. Yeah, the romantic parts in book 2 maybe a little higher, maybe slightly, they kind of have a more mature adult tone to it without crossing lines. So you might just want to check the content I have listed in the review in case some of that might be a little too much for you, but I didn't think it was too much. It felt very real for two adults who are doing these things and, you know, mentioning certain things and stuff like that, but it just might be a little bit too much for some people. So yeah, just check like the content I have written down in my review on Goodreads So, like I said, that's linked down below. So, yeah, just a little clarification there because it is a little bit more intense than book 1. And book 1, I gave a rating of 4.5 stars, and book 2, I gave 4 stars. Really enjoyed that. Really excited to continue. Okay, I'm going to just, let's see. Let me double check. Yes, it's just these 2 left. Okay. Sorry this video is kind of long, guys. Okay, the next book I'm going to talk about, I'm kind of sad to talk about because mainly just a decision I made around it, but whatever. We'll get to that, and that is Haikyuu Volume 5. 5. Yes, 5. This is a manga series I have been trying out that is basically about these guys playing volleyball. That is basically the entire premise of the series. I gave Volume 5 3 stars, and I have made the decision to quit this series. It is not because it is badly written. I do want to point that out. This is a very well-written, very good series. The characters are likable. And yeah, in some aspects, I do enjoy it. I do like the characters. I do like some of the scenes that are drawn in here. They're just really intense. They show deep emotions and stuff like that. But for the most part, I am just fine with the series. I think it's mainly because I am not really into sports as a whole. And sports stories don't really grab me. Because I was thinking yesterday when I made this decision to quit the series, I was trying to figure out why I didn't feel a further connection to it, and I think that's part of the reason, because most of the stories where I do have a slight connection to them, if it's like sports related, have been movies. So I think actually this story would work better for me as the anime format than the manga. Because reading about it, I don't care. I just honestly don't care that much about sports and stuff and being competitive. I am not a competitive person, so I don't really relate to that. So, yeah. I would say, yes, this is still a very excellent series. If you're interested in it, I would definitely recommend trying it. It's fairly clean. I mean, pretty much the only thing that's mentioned is it's like language. Language would be about the only unclean thing about it. But even then, they pretty much only use mild words. So, yeah, it definitely starts with character growth and stuff. But, I mean, between volumes, I'm forgetting certain things. Like, they mentioned a practice match they had against another team at one point. And I'm like, who was that? And then I vaguely remembered it happening. But say this wouldn't happen in something like, say, Yona at the Dawn. I wouldn't forget that much. I might forget tiny details, but nothing significant like that. So it's kind of alerting me that I'm not enjoying this as much as I want to. So, yeah, I'm just going to quit the series. But I am hopeful I can try it as an anime at some point. I think I might like it better that way. So, yeah, I'm very disappointed. I'm very sorry to anybody who was really looking forward to me reading this, but I have to do what's best for my reading taste because I read for fun. I read books that I really enjoy and really like. So if I'm only okay with it, there's really no point in me continuing. So I'm very sorry about that. I am very disappointed, but I'm trying to do what's best for me and my reading taste. So yeah, I will be quitting that series. So yeah, hopefully I can do better on some other manga. And the last book I have to talk about is a surprise that I enjoyed this one so much. And that is Caraval by Stephanie Garber. This is a young adult fantasy book about two sisters, Scarlett and Tella. Basically, in this one we follow Scarlett. She has always wanted to see the magical performance of Caraval that is hosted by the Master Legend, but she's never been, due to her very abusive, very overprotective father, she has never been able to. But then, basically through a series of events, she and Tella end up on the island where Caraval is going to be held this year, and unfortunately though, as part of the game, Tella gets kidnapped and she disappears. And the only way for Scarlett to find her again is to play the game and find her sister. So she ends up teaming up with a kind of sketchy individual, she's not sure of his motives, named Julian, and they go on the adventure of basically playing the game of Caraval in order to find her sister and free her sister. So yeah, I thought I would mildly like this book. In case you're following me on Goodreads, you might have seen I started reading this before, like a month or two ago. I only quit reading it at that time because I was reading too many books at one time and I was getting overwhelmed, so some of them had to go. Anyways, that was not because I wasn't enjoying the story, because I was, and I definitely did. I gave this book 5 stars. I was not expecting to. How do I describe this book? It's very basic in a way, but it's also very beautiful. The way she writes the magic and just the way Scarlet is viewing everything, it's just a beautiful thing. And it's just, you can feel the magic of what she is describing and seeing, and I don't know, I just really liked it. The relationship, friendship to more between Scarlet and Julian, I truly adored. It just really hit me. This book just hit me in a way that I wasn't expecting to. And that, yeah, it just really impacted me. And I'm very glad it did. I really enjoyed this book. Yeah, some of the romance might be a little too, have too many, like, sensual type descriptions. That's the best way I can put it. Like I said, check out my content that I mentioned below, but actually it didn't bother me that much. A few things is like, okay, we're doing that, but, or we're talking about that, but it never crossed any lines for me, and I just really enjoyed this book. I really enjoyed the character. Seeing Scarlet grow from where she is at the beginning to where she is at the end was just so satisfying, and I think that her growth and the connection between her and Julian was what really sold me on this book. This is a book series, it's a trilogy. I was only planning on reading the first book, and you totally can. You can totally read this book as one book and be satisfied. It does conclude. The epilogue does hint at more to come, and I was going to not read the rest of the other 2 books, because I had heard some things about, like, because I think the second book follows Tella mostly, and Tella's not my favorite character, but I am going to be trying the second 2 books because I just love this one so much, and I am curious to see where this is going, with the rest of it, and yeah, I just really want to know. So I will be trying the second book, and we shall see. But yeah, that is all the books I've read recently, and some I enjoyed, some I certainly didn't, and others I never, or at least one I never finished, and others were just there. So yeah, that was a long video. Very sorry guys, this is probably the longest video on my channel. Sorry guys, I will try to do more frequent ones. So yeah, comment down below if you have anything to say. I always love hearing from you guys and hearing your opinions and your recommendations and just your general thoughts. Always love hearing and talking with you guys, so comment down below if you wish, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. Bye!